Have you ever witnessed a moment so shocking, so devastating, that it seemed to freeze time? Picture a dazzling mansion illuminated by crystal chandeliers and echoing with hushed whispers. At the heart of this grand estate stands a pregnant woman on the brink of collapse, tears glittering on her cheeks like shards of broken glass. Across from her, a beautiful but calculating mistress delivers a lie so poisonous it changes everyone's fate. And in the center of it all is a powerful millionaire, silent, unmoving, watching as his entire life unravels. Brace yourself for the tangled web of secrets, betrayal, and heartbreak that awaits. On a crisp autumn morning, the sprawling estate of Alexander Whitmore shimmered under the golden rays of the sun. The Whitmore mansion, an architectural masterpiece blending modern luxury with classic ivy-laced walls, was a testament to one man's extraordinary wealth and ambition. Marble columns and sleek glass windows caught the light, reflecting both the promise and peril of the life within. In the grand foyer, Sarah Whitmore. Alexander's wife paced anxiously. She was 4 months pregnant, her softly rounded belly an unmistakable sign of their soon-to-arrive child. Her hand draped protectively over the small bump, an instinctive act that seemed to say, "This child is my responsibility, my future, and my hope." By all external appearances, Sarah led a life of opulence. She had grown up in a humble home, winning a scholarship to an elite university, where she eventually met Alexander. He was the scion of a powerful real estate dynasty renowned for his ruthless business strategies, intelligence, and charm. Drawn to each other in a whirlwind romance, they married. But behind the glossy veneer, cracks were appearing. The staff moved busily around Sarah, cleaning, dusting, and preparing for the day's extravagant gatherings. This was part of her life now, socializing with corporate elites, hosting upscale soirees, and presenting a flawless image to the press. Yet a nagging tension had taken hold in Sarah's heart. Where was Alexander? She'd awakened alone that morning, his side of the bed, cold and untouched, since some mysterious hour in the night. She had tried calling him, but he'd ignored or dismissed her concerns with a curt message, "I'll be home later." Her mind flashed back to subtle shifts in his behavior over the past few months. Late-night meetings, missing dinner, mysterious phone calls in hushed tones. Sarah told herself she was overreacting, letting pregnancy hormones amplify her insecurities. But deep down, her intuition sounded the alarm. Something was off, and she couldn't ignore the knot of dread forming in her stomach. In the distance, the heavy oak front door opened with a flourish, and Alexander Whitmore stepped inside, exuding an air of authority, even as his tie hung loose around his collar. Tall, with a commanding presence, softened by sculpted features, his dark hair was slicked back, still damp from the light drizzle outside. He never revealed exactly where he spent his nights, only half answers and deflections. "Good morning," Sarah offered, her voice trembling with concern. Instead of greeting her with his usual warmth, Alexander simply nodded. He was already on a business call, gesturing impatiently for her to wait. The hallway staff scurried away, understanding that Alexander's return often signaled tension. After several minutes, he hung up and regarded her. "What's the matter, Sarah?" Her heart skipped a beat. She could never quite get used to his coldness when he was in business mode. Did the man I fell in love with vanish beneath these layers of power and secrecy? "I was worried," she admitted softly. "It's not like you to stay out all night without letting me know." Alexander's gaze flickered with irritation. "There's a lot going on. The deal with the Donovan's property expansion's just too many moving parts." His tone softened for a moment. I'm sorry if I worried you." Sarah felt the dissonance between them acutely. She longed for honesty, to lean on him for emotional support, especially now. But she sensed he was miles away, locked in a world of corporate dealings she could only glimpse. And so she swallowed her questions, forging a smile to keep the peace. Out of nowhere, a voice from the kitchen startled them. "Mr. Whitmore, your mother is on the line." Alexander sighed. "I have to take this," he murmured, brushing past Sarah without a backward glance. As she watched him disappear into his study, an indescribable sadness settled over her. In that moment, she could almost envision the plush gilded bars of her own cage closing around her. She'd built her life with Alexander, believing in love and trust. But now she found herself standing alone in an echoing mansion, pregnant, anxious, and uncertain. She closed her eyes and whispered to her unborn child, "Stay with me, little one. No matter what happens, we'll face it together." Little did she know the days ahead would test her in ways she'd never imagined. Deceit, betrayal, and heartbreak were closing in, threatening to engulf her world. She had no idea just how close the storm had come, or that it was about to break, shattering the fragile illusions she'd spent so long clinging to. A week later, Sarah found herself restless again. Despite the comfort of the Whitmore mansion, every corridor seemed more like a hallway of secrets than a warm home. Alexander's distant attitude had increased her suspicions. Late one afternoon, she mustered the courage to approach her confidant, Elise Banning, her best friend since college. Elise had always been there through heartbreaks, finals week, breakdowns, and the earliest days of Sarah's marriage. They met in the estate's expansive rose garden, meticulously tended by a small army of gardeners. The sun hung low, painting the sky with shades of amber. Sarah lowered herself onto a bench, wincing slightly at the discomfort in her lower back. Elise's eyes darted to the baby bump with concern. "You look pale, Sarah. Are you all right?" "I'm fine, I think." "Just anxious." She took a breath. "Elise, I need to tell you something. But I'm scared. I'm scared I'm losing my mind." Elise leaned closer, her long auburn hair shifting in the soft breeze. "You can tell me anything." Sarah hesitated, then whispered, "I'm worried Alexander is having an affair." It was the first time she'd uttered those words aloud, and they rang in her ears, too stark, too real. Elise's face filled with empathy, but she didn't look surprised. She gave Sarah's hand a squeeze. "Why do you think so?" Slowly, Sarah recounted all the subtle changes: Alexander's late nights, cancelled vacations, furtive phone calls, that hollow emptiness whenever he entered a room. Elise nodded thoughtfully. "You're not paranoid, Sarah. This is suspicious. But am I just being a jealous wife? Maybe it's the stress of his business deals. I'm pregnant, my hormones are off, my emotions are everywhere. I don't want to accuse him unjustly." Elise took a moment. "Have you tried talking directly to him?" Sarah's voice quavered. "He either deflects or gets annoyed. I don't want to drive him away or push him to hide even more." Elise stared out at the carefully trimmed hedges and blossoming roses. "Look, you have every right to ask. This affects you and the baby. If it's a misunderstanding, he should clear it up. If it's real, well, you need to know." Sarah touched her stomach, feeling the gentle flutter of her unborn child. "You're right. But I'm terrified." Determined to confront the issue, Sarah planned to speak with Alexander that evening. She even prepared a simple dinner, her way of coaxing him to relax and talk. But as hours ticked by, her anxiety deepened. Alexander never came. At midnight, the front door finally creaked open. Sarah, seated on the living room sofa, pretended to be scrolling on her phone. She could smell the faint trace of expensive perfume on him, a scent unfamiliar and undeniably feminine. "Hey," she called softly, noticing his disheveled suit and the way his hair was mussed as if by someone else's fingers. "Long day." Alexander turned his head sharply, as though he'd forgotten he had a wife waiting at home. "Yes, I told you these deals are complicated." Without waiting for a response, he walked toward the staircase. Rising to her feet, Sarah followed. "Alexander, please can we talk? Just for a minute." He stopped on the stairs, shoulders stiff. "About what?" Sarah inhaled shakily. "About us. About what's going on. I'm tired, Sarah. We'll talk tomorrow." And with that, he continued upstairs, leaving her standing there, fists clenched in frustration. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she swallowed them back. Tomorrow. She would hold him to that promise. That night, as she lay in bed, staring at his back, she silently vowed to uncover the truth, no matter how painful. Despite Alexander's empty promises, he continued to evade any serious conversation. Sarah's suspicions grew heavier, like an anchor dragging her heart to the depths of uncertainty. Even the staff noticed her muted demeanor. The once vibrant lady of the mansion seemed a pale echo of her former self. One afternoon, Sarah decided to visit Whitmore Holdings, Alexander's corporate stronghold. She told herself it was simply a surprise lunch visit, something supportive wives do. But the nervous flutter in her stomach told her she had another motive to see for herself what Alexander was up to. She packed a basket of homemade sandwiches and some fresh fruit, determined to play the role of a caring spouse. Maybe, just maybe, Alexander would be pleasantly surprised and open up. Whitmore Holdings occupied a sleek, glass-wrapped skyscraper in the center of the city, a symbol of power and prestige. Upon entering the marble lobby, Sarah felt uneasy. She flashed a polite smile at the receptionist, who immediately stood and gave her a respectful nod. "Mrs. Whitmore." "It's lovely to see you," the young woman greeted. "Would you like me to inform Mr. Whitmore you're here?" "Yes, please. I brought him lunch." "Thank you, Sarah," replied, her voice quivering despite her forced smile. Moments later, the receptionist glanced up from her phone and said, "He's in a meeting, but you can wait upstairs in his office. Ms. Donovan is also there." Sarah stiffened. "Ms. Donovan? You mean Mia Donovan?" "Yes, ma'am," the receptionist said brightly. "She and Mr. Whitmore have been in meetings most of the day." Sarah's heart hammered. She knew the Donovans were crucial to Alexander's real estate expansions. Mia Donovan was the eldest daughter of that powerful clan, a shrewd businesswoman rumored to handle negotiations with ruthless efficiency. Sarah had never met Mia personally, but she'd heard enough about her. Brilliant, beautiful, dangerously ambitious. Stepping off the elevator on the top floor, Sarah moved down a corridor lined with contemporary art and glass partitions. From a distance, she spotted Alexander's corner office. Inside, through the partly open blinds, Sarah glimpsed a scene that made her breath catch. Alexander stood close to a tall, elegant woman with dark hair, cascading in perfectly styled waves. The woman's manicured hand rested lightly on his arm. From her body language leaning forward, a confidential whisper, the subtle brush of her fingertips. It was clear they shared more than a standard business relationship. For a moment, Sarah was rooted to the spot, her mind whirling. She tried to rationalize what she saw, telling herself, Perhaps it was just an entertained conversation. But Mia tilted her head, laughing softly, and Alexander smiled in a way Sarah hadn't seen in months. A pang of jealousy and betrayal twisted in her stomach. When Sarah finally found her voice, she rapped softly on the glass door. They both spun around, surprise evident on their faces. Mia quickly withdrew her hand, but her self-assured smile remained. Sarah Alexander said, clearing his throat. I didn't expect you. Sarah tried to calm her erratic heartbeat. I wanted to bring you lunch, see how you're doing, she replied, lifting the small basket in her hand. She glanced between Alexander and Mia, forcing a courteous nod. Hello, Ms. Donovan. Mia turned, offering a dazzling smile. She was every bit as gorgeous as the rumors suggested, dressed in a tailored designer suit that accentuated her willowy figure. Nice to meet you at last, Mrs. Whitmore. Alexander speaks of you often. Oh, that's nice, Sarah lied, her voice subdued. Tension rippled in the air. Alexander seemed to sense the awkwardness. He grabbed the basket with forced enthusiasm. You shouldn't have, Sarah. I was just about done here. Mia and I were finalizing some figures. Mia's phone buzzed, giving her a chance to gracefully excuse herself. I'll leave you two to enjoy lunch. We can continue tomorrow, Alexander. She gave Sarah a courteous nod before gliding out of the office. The second the door closed, Sarah's composure began to slip. She glanced at Alexander, noticing the slight flush on his cheeks. He looked guilty. You're working closely with Mia Donovan, I see, she said softly. He set the basket on his desk. It's purely professional. The Donovans are crucial to our expansion plans, and Mia is the family's representative. His voice carried an edge of defensiveness. Sarah lowered her gaze. Then why didn't you ever introduce me properly? Why hide her from me? Alexander bristled. I'm not hiding her. You're just jumping to conclusions. Tears pricked at Sarah's eyes, but she refused to let them spill. I'm pregnant with your child, Alexander. I'm worried, lonely, and I hardly see you anymore. Am I wrong to feel hurt? He paused, then sighed heavily. No, you're not wrong. I've been under enormous stress. I've been working with Mia to secure deals worth billions. If we pull it off, it changes everything. And yes, we've gotten close, but only as business partners. Sarah studied him. She wanted to trust him, but the image of Mia's hand on his arm still burned in her mind. Her intuition screamed there was more to this story. She inhaled, trying to steady herself. Then, come home early tonight. Let's talk, really talk, about our future, the baby, your business, and us. Alexander hesitated, glancing at the city skyline beyond the glass wall. Then he offered a curt nod. All right. I'll do my best. Despite the tension relief flooded Sarah's chest, at least he agreed to try. Little did she know that the seeds of deceit had already been sown, and her unsuspecting heart was about to endure an agony unlike any she could have imagined. Late that evening, Sarah sat in the mansion's grand library, surrounded by ancient leather-bound volumes and the warm glow of a fireplace. The clock ticked past 10, and once again Alexander was nowhere to be found. Her phone buzzed, a single text from him. Running late. Don't wait up. Sarah's heart sank. All the hope she had felt earlier that day evaporated. She recalled the final glimpse of Mia's confident smile. Did Alexander go straight to her? The thought alone sent Sarah's stomach into knots. You should rest, came a gentle voice. It was Mrs. Alder, the family's longtime housekeeper, who had practically raised Alexander after his mother fell ill during his teenage years. At nearly 70, her kindly face bore deep lines of empathy. Sarah closed her eyes, pressing a trembling hand to her forehead. "I can't. My mind is racing." Mrs. Alder sighed, stepping closer. "I've known Alexander since he was a boy. He has a good heart, but he's got too many secrets. The Whitmore men have always been like that, obsessed with business weighed down by family legacy. Please take care of yourself. You have a baby to think about." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. She appreciated Mrs. Alder's concern, but felt powerless. She was caught in a gilded trap bound by love, loyalty, and a growing child in her womb. "I'll try," she managed, voice cracking, when Mrs. Alder left the library, felt impossibly large and silent. Sarah found herself wandering its aisles of books, running her fingers over dusty spines, seeking distraction. Each step she took carried her deeper into the labyrinth of her own thoughts. She remembered how Alexander used to read poetry to her by the fireplace, how they would laugh over late-night snacks, swaying to music in each other's arms. Where had that man gone? A faint scratching sound made her pause. She turned toward the hallway, leading to Alexander's private study. A line of light shone beneath the door. Strange, she thought. She was sure the study's lights had been off. Slowly, Sarah approached, her heart pounding in her ears. Could it be Alexander had returned after all? She opened the door a crack. The room was empty, but the desk lamp was lit. An envelope lay on the otherwise immaculate desk, addressed simply to A.W. She hesitated, torn between respecting Alexander's privacy and her desperate need for answers. Her gaze flicked to a half-open drawer that contained a small stack of letters. Curiosity, fear, anxious love. These emotions warred inside her, but she couldn't resist. She took a tentative step forward, drawn like a moth to a flame. Inside the drawer, she found correspondences bearing the Donovans' letterhead. One of them was from Mayor Donovan herself. It read, "Alexander, thank you for the other night. It meant more to me than you'll ever know. I can't wait until our next private meeting to discuss the finer details, both business and otherwise." Sarah's breath caught. The words felt like needles piercing her heart. Tears blurred her vision, but she forced herself to keep reading. There were more letters, cryptic references to our arrangement and future plans. Every line hammered home the possibility that Mia Donovan was not just a business partner. It was a direct contradiction to Alexander's reassurance that there was nothing going on. The evidence was before her eyes, stark and damning. Nausea rose, and she hurriedly shoved the letters back, terrified she'd be caught. For a moment she stood trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks. Then she turned off the light and fled the study. In the corridor, she leaned against the wall, mind spinning. He's lying. He's cheating. He's betraying me and our child. The words repeated in her head like a broken mantra. Yet a part of her still clung to denial, whispering that maybe she misunderstood. Maybe those letters were out of context. But the aching dread in her chest refused such comforting illusions. Walking back to her bedroom, she felt an emptiness so profound that she couldn't summon the energy to cry anymore. She stripped off her jewelry, changed into a nightgown, and climbed into the massive bed that felt colder than ever. She wondered where Alexander was and if he was in the arms of another woman. Sleep finally overtook her in the early hours, but it brought little peace, The same question taunted her dreams. When will he tell me the truth? The next day, Sarah awoke to the sound of birds chirping outside her window. She lay there, recalling the letters she had read, her stomach churning. Faint morning light washed over the bedroom's pale blue walls, a gentle contrast to her dark thoughts. She ran a hand over her belly, whispering a soothing mantra to the baby, trying to calm her own frazzled nerves. A soft knock at the door startled her. Elise poked her head inside, concern etched on her face. "I'm sorry, but you weren't answering your phone." "I was worried." Sarah managed a small smile. "It's okay, come in." Elise moved swiftly to her friend's side, eyes flicking to the half-eaten plate of fruit from last night on the bedside table. "You look exhausted. Are you feeling all right?" "Not really," Sarah admitted. She thought about telling Elise everything. The letters, her fears. But a part of her was still reluctant. It was as if saying it out loud would shatter any lingering hope. "I'm just dealing with a lot." Before Elise could press further, Mrs. Alder's voice called from the hallway. "Mrs. Whitmore, there's someone here to see you. She insists it's urgent." Sarah frowned. "Who is it?" "It's Miss Mia Donovan." The name sent a jolt of adrenaline through Sarah's veins. Elise's eyes widened. What in the world is she doing here? Sarah swallowed hard. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." Within minutes, Sarah and Elise were in the parlor where Mia Donovan stood by a bay window, dressed in a sleek black ensemble that struck a perfect balance between professional and seductive. She turned as they entered, fixing Sarah with a cool, confident gaze. "Mrs. Whitmore," Mia greeted her tone polite, but edged with undisguised superiority. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice." Sarah measured her words carefully. "I must admit, I'm surprised by your visit." Mia offered a thin smile. "I can understand that. Let me cut to the chase. I'm here regarding Alexander." Elise bristled. "Is that so?" Ignoring the friend, Mia continued. "There's a very important business matter Alexander and I have been discussing, and it affects you." She stepped closer, locking eyes with Sarah. "He's making moves that will change Whitmore Holdings forever. The Donovans are fully invested in this, and I've grown quite close to your husband through the process." Sarah's pulse raced. "I'm aware of your professional ties, Ms. Donovan." Her tone wavered. "What's so urgent that you'd come to my home unannounced?" Mia's expression flickered with something like pity. Or was it triumph? "I thought it best you hear it from me first. There's speculation that your marriage is not as stable as it once was. I want to ensure that my family's partnership with Whitmore Holdings isn't jeopardized by personal drama." Elise scoffed. "Personal drama? That's quite presumptive of you to barge in here and talk about a marriage you know nothing about." Mia turned her gaze to Elise with a small smirk. "I'm sorry." "Who are you?" Elise jutted her chin, unafraid. "I'm Elise Banning, Sarah's best friend." "Well, Ms. Banning," Mia said, crossing her arms, "let's just say that I care about Alexander's well-being. I see how his marriage problems weigh on him day in and day out." Sarah felt tears rising. The audacity of this woman to show up at her home, speak so brazenly, and claim to care about Alexander. She's more than just a business associate, Sarah's mind echoed. She's come to stake a claim. Drawing a shaky breath, Sarah looked Mia in the eyes. "What exactly are you implying?" Mia stepped forward, her perfume drifting in sweet, heady waves. I'm implying that I've been a friend to your husband, a shoulder for him to lean on. You have your own life, your pregnancy, your concerns. He's felt overwhelmed by it all. I've helped him carry that burden. A flicker of rage ignited behind Sarah's tears. Her child fluttered in her belly as if sensing her distress. If my husband needs assistance, he can come to me. I'm his wife. Mia's lips curved into a half-smile. Are you, though? He doesn't seem to think so. Elise took a threatening step. Watch your words, Ms. Donovan. Sarah is pregnant, and she doesn't need your poison. Mia turned her head slightly. I'm only here out of concern. I want you to know that if your relationship continues to deteriorate, it might affect everything, including the Donovan-Whitmore partnership. I'm just being transparent. This partnership is bigger than personal issues. The Donovans won't tolerate any instability. Sarah's voice trembled with suppressed anger. I appreciate your concern, but your personal involvement with my husband is not your family's business. Whatever is going on between Alexander and me is ours alone to fix. Mia studied her for a moment, then turned as if to leave. You're right, Mrs. Whitmore. It's between you two. But remember, if you can't keep Alexander happy, there are others who will. With that parting shot, Mia strode out, her heels clicking on the polished floor. Elise stood stunned, fists clenched. Sarah sank onto the sofa feeling faint. Tears threatened to overwhelm her, but she fought them back. Mia Donovan had come here to send a message loud and clear that she wouldn't be hidden or sidelined, and that threatened everything Sarah held dear. Elise rushed to her side, pressing a cold hand to her forehead. Sarah, breathe. Don't let her get to you. But it was too late. The seeds of doubt and fear Mia planted had taken root, and Sarah's mind reeled with a torrent of questions. How long? How serious? Was this just a fling or something deeper? Could Alexander truly abandon her and the baby for this woman? Her world was cracking open, and she felt powerless to stop it. Soon enough, the painful truth would come crashing down in ways she never imagined possible. 2 days passed, a tense lull during which Sarah tried to function normally, despite the emotional tempest raging inside. She needed answers from Alexander, but he had flown to Los Angeles for an emergency business trip, one that, according to rumors, Mia Donovan also attended. Sarah consoled herself with the possibility that it really was business. After all, the Donovans had major developments in that region. Meanwhile, whispers spread among the mansion staff about Sarah's increasingly fragile state. The stress was taking a toll on her pregnancy. She visited her obstetrician, Dr. Candace Miller, who implored her to avoid unnecessary anxiety. Your blood pressure is spiking, Sarah, Dr. Miller warned. You have to take it easy for both your sake and the baby's. But how could she relax when her marriage was unraveling? Elise stayed by Sarah's side whenever possible, offering comfort and distraction. They binge-watched old romance flicks, took short walks around the gardens, and tried out prenatal yoga routines. Yet the question always loomed. Where is Alexander? Late one evening, while Sarah attempted to read a parenting book in the living room, her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. She answered hesitantly. Hello. A sultry voice responded. Mrs. Whitmore. It's Mia Donovan. Sarah's heart lurched. What do you want? I thought you should know that Alexander and I have returned from L.A. Mia purred. He asked me to come to the mansion tomorrow to finalize some paperwork. I just wanted to ensure that was convenient for you as mistress of the house. The words stung like a slap. Mistress of the house, while she sees herself as mistress of my husband. Alexander didn't inform me, Sarah said, her voice straining to remain composed. But it's fine. Our home is open for legitimate business. Mia gave a soft laugh. Excellent. See you tomorrow, Mrs. Whitmore. The line went dead. Sarah's pulse pounded, an anger bubbling that felt dangerously close to hatred. Mia was intentionally poking at her wounds, and the fact that Alexander hadn't even bothered to mention the meeting left her feeling betrayed yet again. That night, Sarah barely slept. She paced the bedroom, her mind a cacophony of doubts. Around 2 a.m, the sound of a car door outside jolted her. She hurried to the window. Indeed, Alexander was home. She saw him stepping out of a sleek black sedan. Alone. She threw on a robe and rushed downstairs, catching him in the foyer. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, tie undone. "Sarah," he said, startled to see her. "Why are you still up?" She bit back a caustic reply. "Because I haven't known where my husband is for weeks. That's why." Instead, she said, "We need to talk." With a heavy sigh, Alexander headed to his study. "Fine. Let's get this over with." They settled into chairs across from each other, the desk between them like a battlefield line. His guarded expression set her on edge. She stared at him, trembling. "Alexander, is there something going on between you and Mia Donovan?" His jaw clenched. "Why would you ask that?" Her eyes brimmed with tears. "She's calling me, showing up, making insinuations. And I found letters, private messages, where she's talking about private meetings and more personal matters than just business." Alexander shut his eyes momentarily, frustration etched in every line of his face. "Sarah, I admit I've grown close to Mia through our negotiations. She's ambitious, talented, and yes, I find her company refreshing at times. But you're exaggerating." Sarah's breath hitched. "Refreshing. I'm your wife, Alexander. I'm carrying your child. Do you realize how humiliating it is for me that she flaunts her relationship with you?" He looked away, fingers drumming on the desk. "Mia's father is vital to expanding Whitmore Holdings. Her family invests billions. She's my key point of contact. We've been spending a lot of time together. But is it just business?" "It's complicated," he said, voice low. Sarah felt as though the ground beneath her was crumbling. "Complicated how I can't risk losing this deal. My father's old expansions nearly bankrupted us. This new partnership with the Donovans is saving Whitmore Holdings. If I don't keep them happy, keep Mia happy, we could lose everything. So you're telling me you're sacrificing our marriage for your business?" Alexander's shoulders sagged. "I'm not sacrificing anything. I'm trying to protect what's ours. Maybe I crossed a line, but it was never." He stopped short, but it was too late. Sarah could see the guilt in his eyes. Her heart pounded, tears breaking free. "Never what you're telling me, it's not an affair. But you crossed a line. So what do I believe?" Alexander stood, abruptly pacing across the study. "I'm sorry, Sarah. My intentions were never to hurt you. I just wanted to fix the financial mess to ensure our child has a secure future." Mia found ways to help. We started confiding in each other. Maybe it went too far emotionally, but... She cut him off, voice trembling with equal parts anger and heartbreak. "Too far emotionally. That's betrayal. and you let her humiliate me in my own home." He turned back to her eyes, full of conflicted remorse. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. You think you're the only one under pressure." She practically screamed, tears streaming. "I'm pregnant, Alexander. I'm terrified about our future. I needed you more than ever, and you turned to her instead." Silence enveloped them. The only sound was Sarah's quiet sobbing and the ticking of a grandfather clock. Alexander rubbed his temples. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I'll fix this. I promise." She shook her head, chest heaving with sobs. "I don't know if I can believe anything you say anymore. I'm so scared." He stepped closer, his presence a mixture of familiarity and betrayal. For a moment she considered letting him hold her, but the memory of Mia's letters and the smug voice on the phone hardened her resolve. Sarah brushed past him, leaving him standing in his own study, with regret in his eyes. The heartbreak inside her felt like a tidal wave threatening to drown her. Tomorrow, Mia would come again, and the confrontation promised to be even more volatile. She wondered if she had the strength to face it without shattering completely. Morning arrived sooner than Sarah anticipated. She barely mustered the energy to dress, finally choosing a loose floral sundress that accommodated her growing bump. Her reflection in the mirror startled her pale cheeks, red-rimmed eyes. A deep sadness lingered where once there was a hopeful glow. By mid-morning, staff members scrambled about making refreshments and ensuring the mansion's parlor was spotless. Word had spread that Mia Donovan would arrive for a critical meeting with Alexander. Despite the official reason, the undercurrent of tension was palpable. Sarah sat on a velvet couch near the parlor's large windows, sunlight streaming in and illuminating the opulent space chandeliers, polished floors, lavish drapery. None of it brought her comfort anymore. She felt like an actor in a grim play, forced to watch as someone else stole the show. At precisely 11 o'clock, the doorbell chimed. Within moments, Mia Donovan appeared, a vision of composure in a designer pantsuit and sky-high heels. Her hair was swept into a sleek chignon, emphasizing her regal cheekbones. She scanned the room, her gaze landing on Sarah. Mrs. Whitmore Mia greeted, as if greeting an acquaintance rather than the wife of the man she had entangled. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Sarah forced a polite nod. "Ms. Donovan." Alexander arrived just then, all polished in a charcoal suit tie, impeccably knotted. He gestured toward the parlor's coffee table. "Shall we get started?" The staff discreetly withdrew, leaving the three of them in oppressive silence. Mia opened a leather-bound folder and began discussing property proposals. Terms like equity stake, ROI projections, and expansion timeline filled the room in an attempt at normalcy. But behind Mia's eyes was a flicker of amusement, as if she thrived on the tension. Half an hour in a wave of dizziness swept over Sarah. She tried to focus, but the combination of stress and pregnancy sapped her strength. She rose to excuse herself. "I'm sorry, I need some water." Mia offered a smirk. "Should we take a break? You look a bit faint." Alexander shot Mia a warning glance. "Sarah, you okay?" She nodded weakly, despising how pitiful she must have seemed. "I'll be fine. Carry on." But as she headed to the door, Mia's voice followed. "Before you go, Mrs. Whitmore, there's one detail relevant to you." "Alexander, should we mention the potential relocation?" Sarah froze, turning back. "Relocation? Mia folded her arms. The Donovans are establishing a major branch overseas. We might need Alexander stationed there temporarily for oversight. Sarah's eyes flicked to her husband, who stood rigid. Alexander, you never mentioned that. He cleared his throat, avoiding her gaze. It was only a preliminary idea. Nothing's decided yet. Mia pressed on. I think it's more than preliminary. My father and I see it as essential. You'd need to relocate for at least 6 months, maybe a year. Sarah's heart dropped. Leaving for 6 months? She was due in just 5 months. The mere suggestion was unthinkable. You are leaving me while I'm pregnant, she whispered. Alexander stammered. I told Mia it wasn't ideal. Nothing is final yet. Mia gave a small shrug. Business is business, unless your wife has an objection that can outweigh a multi-billion-dollar deal. That was the final straw. Rage flared in Sarah like a lit fuse overshadowing her dizziness. She stepped toward Mia, voice shaking. You have no right to speak to me about my marriage, or my child. You've done nothing but cause strife in this household. Mia raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. I'm only reporting facts. It's Alexander's decision whether to stay or go. I won't force him. Sarah's temper snapped. You are not the sole decision-maker here. This is my husband, my life, and my child. Alexander moved between them. Sarah calmed down. But Sarah wouldn't be silenced. She glared at her husband. I'm tired of being calm. I'm tired of you letting her push you around, push us around. If your business means you have to break your family apart, then what good is it? Mia let out a soft laugh, stepping around Alexander. My. Hormones are running high. You might want to watch your stress levels, Mrs. Whitmore. It's not good for the baby. In that instant, Sarah felt a sharp pain grip her abdomen. The world tilted. Fear seized her. She clutched at her belly breath, hitching. Something's not right. Alexander lurched forward, gripping her arm. Sarah Mayer's mocking expression faltered. Hey, are you okay? Sarah tried to speak, but her vision blurred, the edges going black. A rush of panic flooded her system, and the room spun. No, not the baby. Please, was her last conscious thought before her knees gave way. She collapsed onto the polished floor, the sound of her body hitting the ground, echoing in the ornate parlor. A collective gasp filled the air. As darkness overcame her, she barely registered Alexander's voice, shouting her name, or Mia's sudden alarm. She slipped into unconsciousness, her final thought a desperate prayer for her unborn child's safety. Sarah awoke to the sterile scent of disinfectant and the soft beep of medical equipment. Her eyelids felt heavy, her throat dry. She blinked, recognizing the stark white ceiling panels of a hospital room. For a moment she panicked, forgetting why she was there. Then it all came rushing back, the confrontation with Mia, the pain collapsing on the floor. She struggled to sit up, and a gentle hand helped her. It was Elise, tears brimming in her eyes. Thank God you're awake. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. The baby, is everything okay? Elise nodded quickly. Dr. Miller says the baby is all right for now. You have elevated blood pressure and stress levels. They want you on bed rest for at least a week. Relief coursed through Sarah, though her body still trembled. She looked around, noticing that Alexander was absent. Where's... My husband Elise's expression tightened. He's out in the hallway making calls. He's been here the whole time, pacing. Sarah lowered her gaze. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over her: anger, betrayal, longing. "Can you get him?" "Of course." Elise stepped outside, returning moments later with Alexander in tow. He looked drained, dark shadows under his eyes. His usual polish was gone. His suit jacket was wrinkled, his tie askew. "Sarah," he said softly, approaching the bedside. "I'm so sorry." She looked at him, tears threatening once more. "I was so scared. I thought I lost the baby." Alexander swallowed hard. "The doctor said you and the baby should be fine, but you need to rest. They want to keep you here overnight for observation." Silence stretched. Elise shifted uncomfortably, then excused herself to give them privacy. Once alone, Sarah closed her eyes. "I can't keep living like this, Alexander. It's killing me, killing us." He nodded, eyes cast down. "I know." She inhaled shakily. "I need the truth. Please just tell me what exactly happened between you and Mia Donovan." Alexander leaned against the bed rail, his voice low and tormented. It started off purely professional. Then over late-night meetings and shared frustrations, we formed a connection. We never slept together, but there was an emotional attachment. He ran a hand through his hair. Mia hinted that if we were involved, it would secure the Donovans' commitment to Whitmore Holdings. I felt the pressure to do whatever it took to save the company. Sarah's mind reeled. "So you led her on?" "Yes. I let things get too personal, but I never intended to leave you." His voice cracked. "But Mia has her own agenda. She wants more control, more power. She wants me to herself." Sarah stared at him, equal parts furious and heartbroken. "You should have come to me. We could have found another way. Instead, you betrayed me." His shoulders sagged. "I know. I regret it every second. But I was terrified of losing everything: my inheritance, our home, our future." Tears slid down Sarah's cheeks. "Your future. What about mine? Our child's? Do you know how lonely and scared I've felt?" Alexander sank into a nearby chair, burying his face in his hands. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I don't want to lose you. I'll do anything to fix this, to prove I love you." She hesitated, remembering Mia's triumphant expressions, her threatening remarks. "Mia isn't going to let you just walk away from this." He met her gaze. "I don't care. I'll fight her if I have to. I realize now I was blinded by ambition and fear. But nothing, no deal is worth risking your health and our baby." Sarah lay back, exhaustion weighing heavily on her. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Alexander." His eyes brimmed with tears. "I understand, but I'm going to try to earn your trust back if you'll let me." Just then, Dr. Miller entered, checking Sarah's vitals and calmly announcing that her blood pressure was stabilizing. "You still need rest. Minimal stress, please," the doctor warned pointedly, glancing between them. Sarah closed her eyes, a swirl of emotions swirling in her chest. Even if Alexander was repentant, Mia Donovan was a force to be reckoned with, and trust once shattered was hard to rebuild. Could she risk her heart again for the man who had nearly destroyed it? A week later, Sarah returned home. Despite the doctor's orders for bed rest, she found it impossible to ignore the tension in the household. The staff tiptoed around, anxious not to disturb her. Elise visited regularly, offering emotional support. and Alexander hovered, clearly desperate to atone, but equally unsure how to approach his shattered wife. By that weekend, Sarah managed to walk gingerly through the mansion's corridors, maintaining her composure. She was determined to reclaim some sense of normalcy. But her newfound calm shattered when Mia Donovan showed up yet again unannounced. This time Mia's face lacked its usual smug smile. Her eyes burned with anger as the maid ushered her into the parlor where Sarah rested. Sarah braced herself, hand instinctively going to her belly. Mia wasted no time. "Where's Alexander?" Sarah glared. "Out, thankfully." Mia crossed her arms. "He's been dodging my calls. I have urgent business matters to discuss." Sarah forced a neutral tone. "Is that what you're calling them now, urgent business matters?" Mia's gaze darkened. "This goes beyond your petty jealousy. The Donovans are pulling out of half the deals we brokered because Alexander won't uphold his end of certain understandings." Sarah's throat went dry. "What do you want from me?" Mia glanced around the lavish room. "Tell your husband to honor our arrangement or face financial ruin. If Whitmore Holdings loses our partnership, everything falls apart. I heard the banks are already on edge about your father-in-law's debts." Sarah's mind whirled. "Are you blackmailing him?" Mia smirked. "Call it persuasion. The Donovans have a lot of power, and I have influence over Alexander. He knows it." A flash of defiance flared in Sarah's eyes. "You can't expect me to push my husband into your arms for the sake of business." Mia stepped closer, tension crackling in the air. "Listen, sweetheart. You have your baby, your sweet little wifely life. Let me handle the rest. I can help Alexander keep Whitmore Holdings afloat. You can keep your status, your mansion, your precious child. All you have to do is look the other way." Sarah's voice trembled with outrage. "You're asking me to share my husband?" Mia shrugged, unapologetic. "I'm offering a practical solution. Our arrangement can be discreet. Many high society couples live like this. I get what I want. You keep the ring on your finger. Everybody wins." Sarah felt sick. The sheer boldness of Mia's proposition was monstrous. "That's not a marriage. That's a sham. And I won't stand for it." Mia's eyes narrowed, her veneer of calm fracturing. "Then get ready to watch everything crumble. We'll strip your husband's company. You'll be left bankrupt with a baby to raise and no resources." Tears burned at the corners of Sarah's eyes, but she refused to give Mia the satisfaction of seeing her break. "I'd rather have nothing than lose my dignity to a woman like you." Mia gave a cold laugh. "Suit yourself. But don't say I didn't warn you." She turned on her heel and left. Sarah collapsed onto the sofa, breathing raggedly. The conversation had confirmed her worst fears. Mia Donovan would do anything to claim Alexander, using the company's future as leverage. And while Sarah knew Alexander was trying to make amends, could he withstand the financial devastation that might follow, torn between loyalty and self-respect? Sarah wrestled with the impossible dilemma. Stand firm and risk total ruin, or allow her marriage to be twisted into an ugly compromise that would haunt her forever. Neither choice felt survivable. 2 days later, Sarah joined Alexander at the Whitmore Holdings boardroom. Tension crackled as Mia Donovan, flanked by her legal team, took her seat. The meeting began with polite updates, but quickly turned when Mia delivered her ultimatum. "My family will withdraw funding unless Alexander honors our personal understanding," she said, her tone smug. Sarah's stomach turned. Everyone understood the implication: surrender the marriage or lose everything. Alexander stood steady and clear. "This company values integrity. I won't trade my family for a deal. If that means losing your investment, so be it." Mia's mask slipped. "You'll regret this." "I already do," he replied quietly. Gasps rippled. Mia stormed out, threatening lawsuits. Chaos erupted, but Alexander remained calm. Back home, Sarah looked at her husband with cautious admiration. He had chosen her, not business, not reputation, her. The cost was high, but the truth mattered more. The storm wasn't over, but for the first time they were facing it side by side. In the weeks after the Donovan fallout, Whitmore Holdings faced a financial storm. Stocks dipped, lenders grew anxious, and Alexander spent long nights searching for investors. The empire his father built was crumbling. Sarah stood by him tentatively. Her trust was fragile, but she saw he was trying. She helped where she could, managing calls and offering quiet encouragement, though her priority remained the baby and her own healing. One night, she found Alexander buried in reports. He looked up, weariness etched into his features. "There's one offer," he said. "A British firm wants in, but only if we give up majority control." Sarah knelt beside him. "Then maybe it's time to let go. Control doesn't matter if we lose everything." Tears welled in Alexander's eyes. "I'm sorry for everything, Sarah. I never meant to hurt you." She squeezed his hand. "We're not perfect, but we're still here." That night they embraced for the first time in months. Not everything was healed, but something had shifted. For the first time in a long while, they felt like a team again. And for Sarah, that was enough to keep going. 3 days later, Sarah and Alexander received an unexpected visitor, Catherine Donovan, Mia's mother, and the true power behind the Donovan empire. Inviting her into the library, they braced for more conflict, but Catherine had a different agenda. "I've heard disturbing things," she began calmly. "If Mia used personal leverage to secure this partnership, that's unacceptable." Sarah explained Mia's manipulations and threats. Catherine's expression hardened. "I suspected as much. She's ambitious to a fault. But I don't condone her actions." Alexander looked cautiously hopeful. "Then what now?" Catherine nodded. "I'm prepared to renegotiate cleanly. Mia will have no involvement moving forward. The Donovans value integrity, and I believe we can do business without entangling personal lives." Relief swept through Sarah. After all the chaos here was a chance at redemption, not just for the company, but for their family. Alexander agreed. "If we move forward, it's on terms of mutual respect. No more secrets." Catherine stood to leave. "Then we have an understanding." As she exited, Sarah felt a weight lift. With Mia finally out of the picture, a path forward emerged, not perfect, but promising. In the weeks that followed under Catherine Donovan's guidance, the partnership stabilized Whitmore Holdings. With Mia exiled to a minor project overseas, peace returned to the Whitmore household. Alexander worked relentlessly to rebuild what he had nearly destroyed: his company, his reputation, and most importantly, his marriage. He showed up for board meetings, employees, and especially for Sarah. Sarah still on partial bed rest, focused on healing physically and emotionally. With Elise's regular visits and Dr. Miller's praise for her lowered blood pressure, she slowly reclaimed her confidence. "He's really changing," Elise noted. Sarah simply nodded. "We're trying." On their anniversary, Alexander arranged a quiet dinner. No fanfare, just honesty, and a shared vow to do better. Eventually, the big day arrived. Sarah went into labor, and Alexander never left her side. Hours later, they welcomed a healthy baby girl, Amelia Grace Whitmore. As Alexander cradled their daughter, his eyes shimmered with tears. "She's perfect," he whispered. In that moment past, betrayals faded. Their family, once on the brink of collapse, now had a fresh start, rebuilt not on perfection, but on forgiveness, resilience, and love. What can we learn from this turbulent story of betrayal, heartbreak, and eventual redemption? Sometimes even the strongest of bonds can be tested by ambition lies and outside temptation suhu. But as Alexander and Sarah discovered, true love requires honesty, vulnerability, and the willingness to fight for each other, even when the odds feel overwhelming. Their journey reminds us that genuine partnerships, whether in business or marriage, thrive on respect and open communication. And in the end, standing firm for what truly matters can inspire unexpected allies, as Catherine Donovan demonstrated. Thank you so much for joining us on this emotional roller coaster packed with drama twists and the ultimate triumph of family over ambition. If you found this story captivating, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support allows us to continue bringing you more fascinating tales that prove real-life dilemmas can sometimes mirror the most dramatic fiction. Together, let's keep exploring stories that touch our hearts and remind us of our own resilience. Betrayal always lurks where you least expect it, and trust can shatter like fragile glass. Picture a lavish wedding ceremony, glistening chandeliers, a groom waiting with an adoring smile, and a radiant bride walking down the aisle. The only catch: the groom's wife is still alive, pregnant, and about to crash the celebration in a way no one sees coming. In a swirl of secrets, shifting loyalties, and hidden agendas, this story isn't just about one moment, it's about everything that led to it. Get ready for a heart-stopping drama filled with deception, power plays, and the most jaw-dropping twist of all. Michael Donovan was born into privilege but shackled by pressures he never fully understood. His father, Leonard Donovan, was the founder of Donovan Holdings, a multinational conglomerate with stakes in real estate technology and luxury goods. From a young age, Michael had the best tutors, the finest clothes, and invitations to galas, hosting CEOs, politicians, and artists. The future was carved out. For him, he would inherit the family empire, become the figurehead of Donovan Holdings, and continue the legacy his father had so painstakingly built. Yet behind the gold-plated gates and marble floors of the Donovan mansion, Michael rarely found true peace. Even as a boy, he could sense the tension that came from being an only child. Every action of his was scrutinized by tutors, staff, and most of all by Leonard himself. His mother had passed away when Michael was 12, leaving him alone in the labyrinth of wealth and expectation. The burden of carrying the Donovan name grew heavier each year. When Michael was 24, fresh out of Harvard Business School, his father's alma mater, Leonard, set him up for the next logical step in the family plan, an arranged marriage to Penelope Gray, daughter of the well-respected Gray family. The Grays owned a series of successful private hospitals across the United States, and the union promised to unite two formidable dynasties. Penelope was beautiful with sharp green eyes and a gentle demeanor. They met briefly at a corporate fundraiser organized by UNICEF. Their families had orchestrated every detail, believing this alliance would strengthen both of their businesses and unify old family connections dating back generations. Though Michael and Penelope found each other attractive, their relationship was neither deep nor romantic at the start. They were two strangers brought together by wealth, power, and an intricate tapestry of obligations. Still, Penelope had a kind heart. She strove to make their marriage more than just a transaction. As they lived together, she discovered Michael's sensitivity beneath his stoic exterior. He was an introvert who found solace in reading detective novels and classical music. She loved philanthropic work, especially volunteering at children's hospitals. Slowly, they built a fragile bridge of mutual respect and tentative affection. Their wedding was a grand affair. Close to 1,000 guests attended, business tycoons from New York, celebrities from Los Angeles, philanthropic luminaries from London. Even Bill Gates was rumored to have sent a rare book on business strategy as a wedding gift. For a moment, Michael thought he could settle into this new life with Penelope, forging a genuine bond that transcended the business contract. Yet as soon as the honeymoon euphoria faded, reality took hold. He had an empire to manage, and a father who, despite recent signs of failing health, still dominated every business decision. At first, Michael tried to juggle his father's demands, the expectations of the board, and the new responsibilities of being a husband. But the pressure was immense. He found himself drawn into late-night work sessions, overseas conferences, and endless strategic meetings. Penelope, for her part, tried to be understanding, but the distance between them slowly expanded. Then tragedy struck. Leonard. Donovan suffered a severe heart attack. He survived, but was left in a precarious state of health that demanded rest and strict medical attention. He started delegating more and more control of Donovan Holdings to Michael. Under the weight of this abrupt shift, Michael grew increasingly stressed. Penelope was his pillar of emotional support in the beginning, but he pushed her away out of frustration, guilt, and fear of failure. Their once budding closeness was overshadowed by boardroom drama and worry for Leonard's health. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and Michael stumbled into a fateful decision that would turn everyone's world upside down. He had hired a new advisor, Elise Carter, a brilliant but fiercely ambitious woman known for her uncanny ability to predict market shifts. At the time, nobody realized she would become the catalyst for a tangled web of secrets. Elise Carter was not born into wealth. She fought tooth and nail for every bit of success she achieved. Raised in a modest household in Detroit, she clawed her way through scholarships and part-time jobs to graduate top of her class at Stanford University. After that, she made her mark at a renowned investment firm, surprising superiors with her talent for analyzing financial markets. Word spread in corporate circles about this brilliant, driven woman, someone who could analyze complex data and offer near-prophetic insights. It wasn't long before Donovan Holdings headhunted her to be Michael's personal financial advisor. From the moment Elise stepped into Donovan Tower, she commanded attention. She had an air of self-confidence that both intrigued and intimidated those around her. She was tall, poised, with a voice that hinted at unwavering conviction. Elise did not hide her ambitions. If anything, she wore them like a badge of honor. Michael initially respected Elise's acumen. He found in her an ally who shared his drive to excel and expand Donovan Holdings' influence. Elise's ideas were fresh. She suggested exploring renewable energy opportunities in the Middle East and investing in cutting-edge biotech startups. As Michael was grappling with the heightened responsibilities left by his father's illness, Elise quickly positioned herself as indispensable. Late nights in the boardroom, strategy discussions that bled into dinner meetings and overseas trips where they had to attend crucial summits together. All these forged a strong rapport between them. But the line between professional respect and personal attraction can blur in high-pressure environments. Michael found himself drawn to Elise's confidence and how effortlessly she seemed to navigate the high-stakes corporate world. She was different from Penelope, who, despite her caring nature, sometimes shrank from the cutthroat realities of business. Penelope was kind, yes, but she lived for charitable causes and quiet companionship. Elise, on the other hand, matched Michael's hunger for business success, feeding his adrenaline with each new venture. It started innocently enough. Elise would ask if Michael wanted to grab coffee after a meeting. Then she'd share personal stories about her upbringing, how she was always told she'd never make it in a world dominated by old money. Michael admired her fighting spirit. Late night after late night, they lingered over conversation that slid from corporate to personal. An electric tension formed, unspoken but undeniable. One evening, they were working on a proposal to partner with a major Saudi Arabian investment fund. As hours ticked by, documents were strewn across the conference table, laptops flickering, the city lights shimmering through the glass walls. Michael rubbed his eyes, exhausted. Elise placed a hand on his shoulder. "Take a break," she said softly, her usually firm voice gentler than usual. "We'll think clearer if we rest for a moment." Her touch lingered. In that silence, Michael felt something shift. They locked eyes. Elise had a look that was both compassionate and fiercely determined. In that moment, it seemed that the entire future hinged on a single choice to step back or step closer. Michael was the first to break the tension by muttering a half-baked excuse to get some air. But that night, he went home, filled with guilt. Penelope was asleep when he arrived, a half-read novel about pediatric care slipping from her hands. He stood at the doorway to their bedroom, quietly wrestling with his disloyal thoughts. He convinced himself that his attraction to Elise was temporary, a manifestation of the stress he was under. The next morning, he resolved to keep things strictly professional. Yet the pull toward Elise only grew stronger. She was cunning enough to sense his inner conflict and feed into his needs, be it professional validation or emotional relief. Over time, the boundaries eroded. They shared passionate looks that turned into clandestine dinners, then stolen weekends under the guise of international business trips. While Penelope dutifully tended to Leonard, ensuring he received proper medical care, Michael found excuses to travel abroad with Elise. It was the classic story. Michael told himself it was harmless, that he had everything under control. Elise convinced him to keep it secret for the sake of business. They couldn't afford any scandal. In reality, Elise intended to gain more than just his affection. She saw a pathway to power that only Michael, as heir to Donovan Holdings, could provide. Thus began an affair built on illusions and betrayal. Michael never intended to divorce Penelope, but he was addicted to the thrill Elise provided. Penelope, who was also dealing with her own insecurities and secret battles, suspected something was off, but couldn't pinpoint it. She was preoccupied with her father-in-law's failing health and her philanthropic work. Little did she know her world was about to fall apart in ways she could never have imagined. Penelope's life revolved around quietly ensuring the well-being of those she cared about. As Leonard Donovan's health rapidly declined, she took it upon herself to work closely with his team of doctors and arrange the best facilities for his treatment. She even leveraged her connections from the Gray family's hospital networks to bring in specialists with global reputations. In the chaos of board meetings, medical appointments, and Michael's increasingly distant behavior, Penelope forgot something crucial. She forgot to watch out for herself. When she first noticed Michael's absences, she chalked it up to corporate responsibilities. The man was basically running Donovan Holdings alone, while Leonard was incapacitated. Penelope tried to be understanding. She knew the empire demanded everything from him, just as her own father's business had consumed her childhood. She called Michael's office, sometimes wanting to hear his voice. On many of those occasions, Elise answered, stating that Michael was occupied with an urgent matter or in a meeting that couldn't be interrupted. It wasn't until Penelope found a lipstick-stained coffee cup in Michael's private study that her suspicions intensified. Who else had been there alone with her husband late at night? Confronted with the possibility of an affair, she was torn between denial and heartbreak. She decided to stay silent for a while, hoping that any momentary lapse of judgment on Michael's part would pass. She believed in her marriage vows, in the sanctity of their bond. Even if it was arranged, she had come to genuinely care for him. Simultaneously, Penelope began to feel unwell. She was more tired than usual, and certain smells like the disinfectant in the hospital hallways made her nauseous. She assumed it was stress, a reaction to the emotional and physical toll of caring for Leonard. Weeks went by, and a suspicion tugged at her mind. Finally, she decided to see a doctor from her family's hospital. The results were shocking. Penelope was pregnant. Though overjoyed at the thought of a baby, she also felt a rising tide of panic. What if the rumors were true? What if Michael was with another woman? How would a baby fit into an already fractured marriage? She wrestled with these questions alone in the hush of her bedroom. Her father, Quentin Gray, a reserved man with a focus on hospital expansions, would be both elated and worried if he found out. Given the condition of Michael and Penelope's relationship, she decided to wait before making any announcement. That wait, however, stretched longer than anticipated because of a startling turn of events. One morning, Penelope noticed that Leonard's health was deteriorating faster than expected. He seemed to slip into incoherence. Concerned, she sought a second opinion. The doctors confirmed her worst fears. The stress of running Donovan Holdings through Michael, coupled with the strain of his own regrets and unspoken burdens, was hastening Leonard's decline. They recommended a long rest at a specialized rehabilitation facility in Switzerland. Penelope made the arrangements quietly. Leonard was whisked away in a private medical flight. Michael was already abroad on business, ostensibly in Dubai, for a high-stakes meeting, but likely accompanied by Elise. Penelope's messages to her husband went unanswered for days. In his absence, she took on the responsibility of ensuring Leonard's smooth transfer to the Swiss facility. She rarely ate, rarely slept, waiting for Michael to return to share the news of her pregnancy to figure out how to rebuild their marriage. But he didn't return calls, or if he did, it was short, curt, and overshadowed by urgent business matters. In this fragile state, Penelope decided to leave the Donovan mansion temporarily for some time alone. She packed a small bag and slipped out in the early morning, heading to a secluded property owned by her side of the family, a lakeside cabin in the Adirondacks. She needed to think, to reflect on whether she should confront Michael or even consider leaving him if the rumors of infidelity proved true. Deep down, she still hoped for reconciliation, but fear was beginning to drown her optimism. No one from the Donovan household knew where she was. She left a cryptic note to the housekeeper, saying she needed a short break to clear her head. And that was it. She vanished from Michael's world at the moment when communication was most crucial. Over time, her phone died. She forgot her charger in her haste. In the silence of the lake, Penelope felt strangely liberated. For the first time in ages, there was no corporate crisis, no father-in-law's medical emergency, and no unsolved questions about her husband's fidelity, at least not within immediate reach. Days turned into weeks. What Penelope didn't know was that her body was undergoing changes far more dramatic than she realized. The pregnancy wasn't just a single baby. She was carrying triplets. This complication began to manifest in sudden dizziness and an unexpected fainting spell by the lakeshore. Penelope's housekeeper, alarmed by her sudden disappearance and lack of contact, eventually reached out to the Gray family, who then initiated a private search. She was found barely conscious in the cabin, and paramedics rushed her to the nearest hospital. By the time Penelope stabilized, the doctors discovered the triplets and recommended specialized prenatal care. With her stress levels so high, the pregnancy was high risk. In the chaos of it all, Penelope lost track of everything that was happening with the Donovans. She didn't know that Michael had kept up appearances of a stable marriage in front of the media. She didn't know that Elise was weaving her web tighter around him. And crucially, she didn't realize that her absence provided the perfect cover for the biggest betrayal, yet a secret wedding. Weeks passed, and Michael's guilt over his affair with Elise morphed into a distorted form of acceptance. Part of him believed that Penelope had abandoned him when she left without notice. There was no explanation, no phone call. He had no idea she was battling health issues, much less pregnant. Elise used Penelope's absence to her advantage, discreetly seeding doubts in Michael's mind. "She was never truly invested in your struggles," Elise would say. "She vanished when the going got tough." Michael, blindsided by hurt and pride, chose to believe Elise's narrative instead of digging deeper. Meanwhile, with Leonard gone to Switzerland and Penelope nowhere to be found, the Donovan board members and shareholders grew restless. They needed stability at the helm. Elise, aware of this, whispered subtle suggestions to Michael. "The board might feel more confident if you appeared settled. The media's starting to speculate about your wife's disappearance. A new marriage, a fresh start, could quell rumors." It was a radical idea, but Michael, vulnerable and emotionally frayed, entertained it. Despite the unorthodox circumstances, Elise was persuasive. She pointed out that Penelope had vacated the Donovan mansion, and that no one, not even her family, seemed to know her whereabouts. In truth, the Gray family had tried to contact Michael, but Elise intercepted calls and messages, feeding him only selective information. She painted a picture in which Penelope's leaving was final, that she had run away, because she couldn't handle the pressure. Michael, angry and convinced he'd been deserted, allowed this narrative to fester. Elise enlisted the help of her own network, a private officiant willing to conduct a discreet ceremony, a luxury resort outside the country, specifically in Greece, where paparazzi were less likely to pry. Elise even coordinated a handful of the Donovan Holdings executives who were sympathetic to her cause or wanted to curry favor with the new power couple to be their witnesses. In an insane twist, Michael rationalized that a quick, quiet wedding was the best route to stabilize Donovan Holdings' image. He had convinced himself that Penelope was gone for good. On a balmy afternoon, overlooking the sparkling waters of Mykonos, Michael stood at the resort's makeshift altar. Elise wore a sleek, white designer gown. Only a small cluster of guests attended, most under confidentiality agreements. The officiant recited the vows, and each word felt like a dagger twisting deeper into the memory of Michael's first marriage. Yet he pressed on his emotions, clouded by anger, betrayal, and Elise's influence. When he slipped the ring onto Elise's finger, it was done. Michael Donovan was now a bigamist. The wedding night was lavish. A private dinner on the beach, fireworks lighting up the sky, champagne poured into crystal flutes. Elise played the part of the triumphant bride, ignoring the fact that on paper her union might not even be legally valid. Michael, slightly inebriated, allowed himself a fleeting moment of relief, as though he'd outrun his personal demons. They danced under the moonlight, each step carrying him further from the life he once shared with Penelope. In the midst of the revelry, Elise pulled Michael aside and confided in him that she had negotiated a crucial business deal with a tech mogul named Aaron Johnson, a real-life power player in Silicon Valley, who was rumored to be the brains behind multiple AI startups. If Donovan Holdings could secure Johnson's latest project, it would mean billions in future investments. Elise insisted that they meet him in Hong Kong the following week, sealing the deal that would cement Donovan Holdings at the forefront of cutting-edge technology. Drunk on the euphoria of a new beginning, Michael agreed without hesitation. Maybe Elise was right. This was a fresh start, a chance to break from the burdensome past. A wave of determination flooded him. He would take Donovan Holdings to new heights, show the board he was a leader, and prove that he didn't need anyone who abandoned him. In that surge of self-righteous conviction, Penelope became little more than a memory, an inconvenient chapter of his life he was prepared to close. Little did he know that Penelope's absence was never her choice, that she was alone in a hospital, fighting for her health and the health of their unborn children. As Michael prepared for a flight to Hong Kong with his new wife, fate was setting the stage for a shocking turn of events that would soon come crashing down on them. A swirl of coincidences, hidden loyalties, and a certain company seal still under Penelope's control would soon rewrite all their lives. Donovan Holdings was in chaos behind the corporate facade. Rumors circulated among employees that something was amiss at the top. Why had Penelope vanished? Why had Michael traveled repeatedly to far-off locations? And why did Elise Carter, once just an advisor, now walk the halls like she was the new queen? Most employees avoided open speculation for fear of repercussions, but gossip thrived in hushed corners of the cafeteria, in quick glances at passing executives, and in water-cooler whispers. Board members, particularly the older ones who had been loyal to Leonard, were troubled. While Michael held the position of CEO, Leonard had always safeguarded final authority through a special clause in the corporation's bylaws. This clause stated that the official Donovan Holdings seal, an antique signet ring, custom-made for the original founder, was required to validate certain major decisions, especially those involving mergers, acquisitions, or large-scale investments. The board could not proceed with major deals without that seal being stamped on official documents, and that seal was missing. It had been in Leonard's possession up until his sudden departure to Switzerland, but according to the staff at the Donovan mansion, Penelope had been the last person seen with it, making sure it was safely stored. Why had Penelope taken it? No one had an answer. In her absence, key decisions were on hold, hampering day-to-day operations. Michael tried to push forward anyway, but whenever he tried to finalize a deal, he was asked about the official seal. He would bristle and dismiss the question, claiming it would turn up soon. Elise, too, tried to reassure the board that everything was under control. But anxiety was mounting Donovan. Holdings was hemorrhaging money on stalled projects. Competitors, aware of their internal issues, were circling like sharks, waiting to snatch away valuable contracts. Michael was fuming. Each time he demanded an update on the seal, Elise tried to calm him, saying that once they got the new investment from Aaron Johnson, the board wouldn't dare question their authority. But deep down, Michael knew the seal was more than a mere artifact. It symbolized legitimacy in the eyes of the old guard, who still revered Leonard's legacy. Without it, Michael's position was precarious, and behind closed doors, some board members even whispered about challenging Michael's leadership if he couldn't produce that seal soon. Amid this turmoil, Elise cunningly positioned herself as Michael's protector. She managed communications with the PR team, carefully crafting messages about Penelope's extended trip to see her relatives, while ensuring no one could reach the Gray family directly. She also isolated Michael from potential allies, ensuring only her version of events was repeated back to him. Publicly, she made subtle appearances as Michael's new partner, but not so openly as to invite scandalous headlines. She wanted to usurp power, but carefully enough to avoid a backlash from the conservative board members who still expected a respectable CEO and a stable family image. Meanwhile, Penelope's father, Quentin Gray, grew increasingly suspicious. Why had no one from Donovan Holdings acknowledged Penelope's condition or sent well wishes? Where was Michael? Despite repeated attempts to contact the Donovans, all he got was stonewalling by unknown staff. Finally, he decided to handle matters himself. He reached out to his own network, which included private investigators and trusted friends in corporate circles. A few discreet inquiries revealed a disturbing pattern of Michael's overseas trips and Elise's growing influence. Alarmed, Quentin planned to make a public statement exposing the truth if Michael didn't respond. Just as tensions reached a boiling point, news broke that Michael and Elise were attending a high-profile tech conference in Hong Kong to sign a deal with Aaron Johnson's group. The entire Donovan board tuned in to watch the live-streamed panel discussion, hoping to see some semblance of leadership from Michael. Instead, they saw him appear flustered when a journalist asked about Penelope's whereabouts. Elise smoothly intervened, offering a canned response about Penelope being busy with charitable commitments. To make matters worse, the deal they were there to seal could not be finalized because the Donovan seal was required on the official contract. In front of cameras and an international audience, Johnson's legal team politely insisted on proper formalities. Michael hemmed and hawed, trying to delay. But the damage was done. People smelled blood in the water. If Donovan Holdings couldn't produce the sign of their patriarch's blessing, what else were they missing? Elise covered for him as best as she could, promising that the seal would be provided once they returned to the US. The conference ended on an awkward note with no contract signed. Over dinner, Michael raged about the humiliating turn of events. Elise assured him they would come up with a plan, but doubt shimmered in her eyes. She knew that without Penelope or the seal, her elaborate scheme to control Donovan Holdings was teetering. Yet neither she nor Michael had any idea that Penelope's health crisis was stabilizing and that she was preparing for a grand return. When Penelope discovered the extent of Michael's deception, it wouldn't just be her heartbreak fueling her actions. It would be her maternal instinct to protect her unborn children and preserve Leonard's legacy. Penelope awoke in a hospital suite in Manhattan, surrounded by warmth and the constant hum of medical machinery. She blinked disoriented at first, until memory seeped back the lakeside cabin. Her dizziness, the eventual rescue by the Gray family's private search team. Gradually she turned her head to see her father, Quentin, sitting in a chair beside her bed, his face etched with relief and worry. "Where am I?" she managed, her voice ragged from lack of use. "At Gray Memorial Hospital," Quentin replied softly, standing to hold her hand. "You passed out. We found you just in time." Slowly, the doctors and nurses filled in the gaps. Penelope was pregnant with triplets. The high-risk nature of the pregnancy, coupled with extreme stress and insufficient rest, had led to fainting spells and complications. Fortunately, they had intervened in time. She still required close monitoring, but her condition was stable enough for her to remain conscious and coherent. Over the next few days, Penelope focused on healing. She received intravenous nutrients, carefully prepared meals, and moral support from her father and a few trusted friends. Notably, absent from her bedside was Michael. She could hardly believe he hadn't contacted her, especially after hearing about her hospitalization. Concern turned into a crushing sense of betrayal. Although she had left the mansion abruptly, she assumed Michael would have been informed by someone if he cared. It was Quentin who broke the news about Michael's affair. Penelope listened in stunned silence as her father described how the Gray family's discreet investigation revealed intimate photos of Michael and Elisa in Mykonos, swirling speculation about a secret wedding and the ongoing corporate meltdown at Donovan Holdings due to the missing seal. For a moment, Penelope couldn't breathe, every nerve ending aflame with shock and heartbreak. She had suspected Michael of straying, but a wedding. Her first thought was of the children growing inside her. She felt a fierce protectiveness welling up. This wasn't just a personal betrayal anymore. It was a direct threat to her unborn baby's future and their rightful claim to the Donovan legacy. She also thought of Leonard in Switzerland recuperating. How would he react if he knew his own son had committed such a blatant act of dishonor? Penelope swallowed her tears, bracing herself for the fight she knew lay ahead. It was then that she recalled the old signet ring, the Donovan seal. Leonard had entrusted it to her just before leaving for Switzerland, insisting she safeguard it until Michael found his way. At the time, Penelope hadn't fully understood its significance. Now she realized it was a powerful key, not just a family heirloom, but a linchpin of corporate authority. Penelope vowed to keep it hidden until she could confront Michael about his actions and ensure the board understood what was happening. With her father's support, she set a plan in motion. She'd remain in the hospital for another week under tight security. She'd build her strength consult with specialists to manage her pregnancy and coordinate with a hand-picked legal team. Quentin had connections in New York's elite law circles, people known for their discretion and loyalty to the Gray family. A press conference was possible, but she needed to tread carefully. The wrong move could destabilize Donovan Holdings even further and tarnish the Gray family name. Each day, Penelope's resolve hardened. Her heartbreak over Michael twisted into a cold determination to protect her children and Leonard's legacy. She understood now that Elise wasn't merely a fling. She was a threat of epic proportions, a cunning opportunist who had manipulated Michael to her side. Still, Penelope was not one to wallow. She summoned the best maternal instincts she had, rallying her physical and emotional strength. Meanwhile, her father kept feeding her updates, how the Donovan board was up in arms, how Michael's big deal in Hong Kong stalled, how various tabloids were sniffing around for stories. Penelope realized that if she returned with no evidence or strategy, Michael and Elise could spin any narrative they wanted. This time she would not be blindsided. In the quiet hours of the evening, Penelope would rest her hands on her belly, feeling the faint fluttering of life within. She whispered promises to her unborn babies about the world she would provide for them, a world free from the treacherous manipulations of Elise Carter. She also prayed for Leonard's health, hoping he'd recover enough to see the family united once more under a banner of integrity, not deceit. As days passed, Penelope's condition improved. The doctors deemed her stable enough to leave in a few days' time, with the caveat that she continue to avoid high stress. Penelope merely smiled at that suggestion. Stress was inevitable, given the storm waiting for her beyond these walls. Yet she felt a growing fire in her heart. She had the company seal the rightful claim as Michael's wife and 3 unborn children who deserved the Donovan name. She would return, and when she did, no one would stand in her way. In Hong Kong, the trip that was supposed to secure Donovan Holdings' future turned into a quagmire of delays and anxiety. Michael had extended the trip under the pretense of salvaging the deal with Aaron Johnson, but every meeting ended the same way. Johnson's legal advisors requested the Donovan seal, and Michael tried to stall. Elise, sensing the walls closing in, spent her days scrambling between negotiations, phone calls to the board back home, and attempts to keep the media from unearthing their secret nuptials. The strain on their relationship was palpable. The once thrilling affair lost its luster in the face of looming catastrophe. In an upscale suite on the top floor of the Peninsula Hotel, Michael slammed his laptop shut after another disappointing Zoom call with the Donovan board. His hair was rumpled, his eyes bloodshot. Elise paced the suite's plush carpet phone in hand, scanning the latest news feeds for any leaks about Penelope or the missing seal. "I can't believe this is happening," Michael fumed. "The board is practically threatening to invoke a clause to remove me as CEO if I don't produce that damned seal." Where the hell did Penelope go? Elise's lips tightened. She resented that, even in her moment of triumph, Penelope's name still loomed large. "I'm doing everything I can," she said, forcing calm into her voice. "We've checked with everyone in her social circle, her charities, even those snobby clubs she used to frequent." No sign of her. Michael glared out the window at the glittering Hong Kong skyline. "You said she ran off, that she couldn't handle the pressure." "Maybe she's with the Grey family in some fancy estate in Europe." Elise felt a twinge of panic. The Grey family's resources were vast, and if they were protecting Penelope, there was little Elise could do from across the world. Before she could reply, Michael's phone buzzed. He snatched it off the coffee table. The caller was one of the senior board members, James Muller, an old friend of Leonard Donovan. James's voice crackled over the speaker. "Michael, I hate to bother you, but we have a problem. Well, another problem. Quentin Gray has made contact with the board. He claims Penelope is in New York, alive and well, and she wants to address the board in person." Michael's heart pounded. "She's alive and well. What is she playing at? Why hasn't she called me?" James hesitated. "She's requested an urgent board meeting. She says she has crucial information about the future of Donovan Holdings. She also mentioned she's in possession of the family seal." A wave of confusion and anger swept over Michael. So Penelope had the seal all this time, Elise's nails dug into her palms. This was the worst-case scenario. If Penelope reappeared with the seal, Michael's entire house of cards could topple. The secret wedding would come under scrutiny. The board might question his judgment. And worse, if Penelope chose to go public about his betrayal, Donovan Holdings could lose face in front of investors. Michael ended the call, his mind racing. Elise searched his expression, trying to gauge the level of crisis. "What did he say?" she asked, voice tense. "Penelope's apparently coming back," Michael replied, eyes dark and brooding. "And she has the seal." They stood there for a long moment, the tension in the room thick enough to cut with a knife. "Elise, always the strategist," broke the silence first. "We need to get ahead of this. If Penelope shows up at the board meeting, we have to paint her as unstable or manipulative. We say she stole the seal. We show your new marriage as legitimate. You have to come off as the victim." Michael clenched his jaw. Part of him balked at the idea of publicly smearing Penelope. They had shared a life, even if it was arranged at first. Yet Elise's logic was ruthless but sound from a purely tactical standpoint. The board meeting would be a battlefield, and they needed to prepare their defense or risk annihilation. He rubbed his temples. "Fine. But we need to return to New York immediately." Elise nodded, her posture firm, as she began texting their travel agent. "We'll leave tomorrow morning on the earliest flight. I'll arrange a press release that you're cutting the trip short for urgent family matters. That should keep speculation at bay for at least a few days. Michael sank onto the sofa. His thoughts drifted to Penelope. Why had she vanished? Why had she reappeared now? And if she truly had the seal, what else did she plan to do with it? Part of him felt guilty. Was she in trouble all this time, while he assumed the worst of her? But the guilt was quickly swallowed by apprehension over the looming confrontation. He had made choices he couldn't take back, locked himself in a marriage to Elise. Perhaps he was too far gone. Outside, the neon lights flickered in the Hong Kong night, as though mocking the illusions he had built around himself. The storm clouds were gathering, and they would soon break over New York in a downpour of secrets, lies, and harsh truths. Penelope arrived at Donovan Tower in a sleek black sedan, accompanied by Quentin Gray and two of his trusted lawyers. Though her steps were measured and calm, her heart thundered with anticipation. She wore a simple yet elegant navy blue maternity dress that revealed the gentle curve of her belly, a silent testament to the life growing within her. Clutched in her right hand was a small velvet pouch containing the Donovan seal, the symbol that the entire corporation was desperately seeking. Outside the tower, curious onlookers and reporters clustered hungry for a scoop. Questions rang out about her disappearance and rumored pregnancy, but she ignored them, ducking into the building with determined grace. The boardroom was already buzzing with tension. Penelope could hear murmurs inside her name, the seal, the possible scandal. She drew a deep breath before stepping in. All eyes shifted to her as she entered. She felt a mix of sympathetic, curious, and wary gazes from the directors. At the head of the table sat Michael, rigid as a statue, with Elise standing protectively behind him. Seeing Elise in the boardroom was jarring, but Penelope steeled herself. She had mentally rehearsed this moment a dozen times. Michael managed rising to his feet. His voice held a tremor of conflicting emotions. Anger, relief, maybe even guilt. Elise's eyes narrowed, her expression unreadable, yet hostile. Penelope inclined her head politely at Michael before addressing the board. Thank you all for allowing me to speak today. I know my abrupt absence caused confusion. I regret any strain it placed on Donovan Holdings. James Muller, the senior board member who had informed Michael of Penelope's return, welcomed her. We're grateful you're here. The company has been at an impasse waiting for that seal. And of course, your explanation. Penelope glanced at Michael and Elise, summoning her courage. I've been under medical care for the past few weeks, she began, her tone steady. During that time, I discovered I was pregnant. With triplets. The board members exchanged startled looks. Michael paled, while Elise's composure visibly faltered. Penelope continued. Before Leonard left for Switzerland, he entrusted me with the Donovan seal. He wanted me to protect it until Michael was ready to assume his responsibilities with integrity. He was worried about undue influences that might steer Michael away from his true path. She paused for effect, letting her gaze rest on Elise. The message was clear. Elise took a step forward, her voice sharper than she intended. Is there a point to this story? We've waited weeks. Penelope cut her off. I'm not done, Elise. The quiet authority in Penelope's tone was like a slap to the face. Elise froze, stunned by Penelope's newfound assertiveness. Quentin Gray spoke up, his gravitas filling the room. Donovan Holdings is a cornerstone of American industry. My daughter has acted according to Leonard Donovan's wishes. Today she has returned to ensure the rightful stewardship of the company. Michael cleared his throat. And what exactly does that mean? Penelope. His eyes flicked to her belly, then back to her face. Why didn't you contact me? Why keep the seal hidden? She looked at him, sorrow mixed with disappointment. I did try at first, but every attempt to communicate was blocked or intercepted. I have proof of calls to your office that never reached you, emails that bounced back. I thought you'd deserted me, Michael, until I found out the truth about your relationship with Elise. A hush settled over the room, broken only by the faint hum of the air conditioning. Elise visibly bristled. We don't need to discuss personal matters in a business setting. The board. Penelope raised a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. Let's not fool ourselves. The personal and the professional are deeply intertwined here. If this was just an affair, that would be one thing. But you manipulated corporate decisions, withheld crucial information, and jeopardized contracts. And now there's the matter of a secret marriage. A collective gasp went around the table. Several board members exchanged alarmed glances. Elise's eyes flared, but she couldn't deny it. She and Michael had no official license recognized in the state. They had tried to keep the ceremony in Mykonos under wraps, but rumors had leaked. One of the board members, an older woman named Bella Chang, spoke up. Is this true? Michael, did you marry Elise without finalizing your existing marriage to Penelope? Michael's shoulders slumped under the barrage of scrutiny. He had no defense except a vague attempt to excuse his actions. Penelope left me, and there was pressure. I was told she'd abandoned her position, that the board needed stability. And you believed that Penelope's voice quivered with hurt. You didn't even try to find me to talk to my father to question Elise's narratives. Michael looked lost, trapped in a web he helped create. Elise tried to salvage the situation. We can work through any misunderstandings, but as far as the board is concerned, we need that seal to finalize the partnership with Aaron Johnson. Penelope pulled the velvet pouch from her handbag, holding it up. The glint of the antique signet ring caught the fluorescent light. Here it is, the Donovan seal. She set it on the table carefully. I'm willing to provide it under one condition, that we protect Leonard's wishes and that any further leadership arrangement of this company respects my rights as Michael's legitimate wife. A wave of murmurs crossed the room. Bella Chang nodded in agreement, her respect for Penelope's stance evident. James Muller cleared his throat. What do you propose? Mrs. Donovan. Penelope met the eyes of each board member one by one. Until Leonard recovers fully, I suggest that any major decision, including finalizing deals like the one with Aaron Johnson, must require signatures from both Michael and me. I will remain listed as a co-trustee of the Donovan estate. If Michael wishes to salvage his position here, he must acknowledge me and our children publicly as part of the Donovan family. Elise flinched, as if struck. Michael stared at Penelope in conflicted silence. He knew the board would likely support Penelope's demand. She was carrying the heirs to the Donovan legacy after all, and had the seal. Despite everything, Michael felt a strange relief. Part of him wanted a way out of the corner he'd boxed himself into. One of the lawyers accompanying Penelope stood. We've prepared documents that formalize this arrangement. We ask for a vote from the board. If approved, we can proceed with finalizing any pending deals. All eyes turned to Michael. Defeated, he picked up a pen. Fine, he said quietly. Let's vote. The board's decision was swift. Penelope and Michael would co-lead Donovan Holdings, and Michael was to publicly reaffirm Penelope as his wife and the mother of his unborn children. Elise stood frozen rage, simmering beneath her calm facade. After months of scheming, she'd lost everything in a single meeting. To steady the ship and pacify investors, a press conference was arranged. Penelope meticulously prepared, choosing a tailored white suit that complemented her growing belly. She rehearsed her speech, determined to strike the perfect tone between strength and diplomacy. On the morning of the event, she and Michael shared a car ride for the first time in months. Michael broke the silence. "Penelope, I'm sorry. For everything. She cut him off gently, eyes fixed on the passing city. "We'll talk later. Let's focus on the company first." Arriving at Donovan Tower, cameras flashed wildly as they stepped out. Reporters shouted questions, but security quickly ushered them inside. The atrium buzzed with anticipation, executives and journalists watching closely. At the podium, Penelope began with poise. "I'm Penelope Gray Donovan. I'm here to address recent speculation regarding Donovan Holdings. Let me begin by saying my husband and I are united in our dedication to this company's future. Leonard Donovan remains in recovery, and we continue to honor his legacy." She paused, then delivered the headline. "During my absence, I learned I was pregnant with triplets." A murmur rippled through the room, cameras erupting again. "I required medical care and rest. Now I'm back and ready to resume my role in guiding this company forward." Michael stepped in beside her. "I'm grateful Penelope is safe. We are committed to Donovan Holdings together." His voice was steady, his hand on her shoulder, a carefully choreographed show of unity. The crowd relaxed until a journalist raised a pointed question. "Donovan, can you confirm the rumored wedding in Greece with Elise Carter?" Tension crackled in the air. Elise, standing in the shadows, stiffened. Michael swallowed. "There was a private event overseas, but it has no legal standing. My wife is Penelope Gray Donovan. I regret any confusion." Penelope's expression didn't flinch, but her silence spoke volumes. "To conclude," she said firmly, reclaiming the mic, "we thank you for your support. Donovan Holdings will continue pushing forward with strength, innovation, and integrity." As the press conference wrapped up, Michael and Penelope exited swiftly, reporters trailing behind. Elise lingered near the side entrance, barely noticed. Her reputation was in ruins, but she wasn't finished. She still had access to confidential documents, and if she couldn't have the company, she would make sure to take a piece of it with her. Meanwhile, Penelope walked down the tower steps with one hand on her belly, shielding her unborn children from the storm around them. Her mind raced with uncertainty. Michael had publicly acknowledged her, but could she ever trust him again? Was he truly remorseful, or just trying to save face? The spotlight faded behind her, but Penelope's mission was only beginning. As she whispered to her unborn children, "I'll protect us no matter what," she knew this was far from over. In the days after the press conference, Donovan Holdings stabilized. Investors relaxed, the board aligned behind Penelope and Michael, and public confidence returned. But inside the Donovan mansion, tensions lingered. Penelope moved back, but not into Michael's bedroom. She focused on her health and the babies. Michael, weighed down by guilt, kept his distance. Elise, stripped of her influence, remained in a peripheral office. Few realized how dangerous her desperation had become. One evening, Penelope was finishing a call with her father when Michael knocked on her study door. He looked unsure, holding a folder. "It's about us and the company," he said. "These are letters from my father. He said if I lost my way, the seal should stay with you. He trusted you." Penelope's voice was calm but firm. He was right to. Michael's shoulders sagged. "I'm sorry, Penelope. I didn't know you were in danger. Elise shut you out. and I let her. You believed her lies without question, Penelope replied. I nearly lost our children. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your forgiveness. Before she could respond, a crash echoed from the hallway. They rushed out to find Elise near the front door, security guards holding her by the arms. She clutched a black leather bag like it contained her soul. What's going on? Michael demanded. She was trying to leave with confidential company files, a guard explained. Let me go, Elise snarled. You think you can humiliate me and toss me aside? I made Michael into a leader. I deserve more than this. Michael stepped forward. You manipulated me, lied, used me. I'll leak everything, Elise spat. Your father's deals your internal memos. Pay me what I'm worth, or I'll destroy this company. Penelope stepped in steady despite the turmoil. You're threatening blackmail, Elise. That alone will bury you. You think I won't do it, Elise hissed. A guard swiftly seized the bag. Inside were USB drives, printed communications, and documents tied to sensitive negotiations. Penelope handed them back to security. Call the police. She's leaving with stolen property. Elise's confidence cracked. Michael, don't let them arrest me. You know I never meant to. Michael's jaw tightened. You made your choice. As the guards escorted Elise out, her screams echoed down the marble hallway. Penelope slumped into a chair, shaking. Michael knelt beside her, concern etched on his face. You okay? She nodded, breath shallow. Yes. But it's over. Finally. Michael exhaled slowly. For good this time. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away, but she didn't grip back either. Outside, the storm had passed, but a long road still lay ahead. And so with Elise Carter taken away in handcuffs and the Donovan seal finally back where it belonged, Michael and Penelope emerged to rebuild what had been broken. Their journey forward wouldn't be free of heartache or challenge, but it would be built on truth and renewed commitment, a vow far stronger than any secret ceremony could ever be. With the Donovan legacy secured and 3 babies on the way, their story stands as a reminder that love, loyalty, and integrity can withstand even the most devastating betrayals. If you've been hooked by this tale of power, betrayal, and redemption, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories. Your support helps us continue unearthing dramatic real-life sagas that keep you on the edge of your seat.